Hey, y'all. I am making sure that we're live, and then I'll start talking. It says that we're on air. I need to get, if you're with me, confirm it. Why would it not be showing up here? I'm just going to hit reload. Oh, there we are. Okay. Says we got 5 people with us right now. Hey, Duncan, good to see you. Jennifer, I'd forgotten where you're from. Nebraska. Very good. I know very little about Nebraska. I loved driving through it several years ago. It's kind of frozen on my end. If it's good on your end, if it's not good on your end, just type it in the comments. Let me know. I'll get started here in a bit whenever I'm sure we're good. If for some reason the stream clips out, then just go back to my channel on Facebook or YouTube or Twitter, wherever you are, and I'll get going on a better stream. But hopefully we won't have to do anything like that. Chris, hey, I'm glad it's good where you are. I've been a busy bee, very disorganized. Haven't read as much this week as I've wanted to, and there are probably a lot of things going on that I don't know about, but I'm going to do, hopefully, something that's worth everybody's time. It is still... Oh, hey, Paul, how you doing, man? All right, it is 4:02. So, yeah, we should go ahead and get into it. As people sign on, go ahead and just let us know who you are, where you're from, and you're welcome to chat with one another. You're welcome to put questions to me in the chat. I usually talk about everything in the chat. We usually get up to around 50 people here. There's usually enough room and time for everybody. We close with a prayer at the end, so keep in mind what you want us to pray about. But for right now, it's a time to talk about all things Methodist and kind of the projects that I'm up to, and inviting you to be a part of that with me. So get your heads in Methodist land. And, oh, thanks, Duncan. I appreciate you. Hey, John from Arkansas. Eileen, as always, love your support and your presence. You're such a consistent friend. Hey, Jim from Calvert County, Southern Maryland. I know nothing about that, but I'm so glad to have you here. And then Fred Duncan from Salisbury. Always have a big crew from YouTube here, but if you're with us on Facebook, go ahead and make sure to say howdy from where you are on Facebook. And then, I'm always working out the kinks here, and I hate going too far, so if at any point I'm clipping out or the audio's not good or something, then just let me know. But hopefully we'll have a good show. I want to start off by talking about money stuff, and I know that's not fun, but this is my locals community. This is where everybody can go to support me. It's at plainspoken.locals.com, and you'll see I release things early and post private stuff for people who support me. This is where you can go to actually give me money. It hasn't been as successful as I wanted it to. A few weeks ago, I got really clear. I don't want to make money off of advertisements on YouTube. I was clearing $200 to $300 a month on there. It wasn't anything huge, but it was good just to show my church that, hey, this is a ministry that can give back to the church, and there's some rewards. It's not working out that way. We've only had a couple dozen people sign on to fund regularly or give one-time gifts for a certain amount of time. And I don't know why that is exactly, because I get a lot of emails regularly saying, hey, man, this makes a huge difference for me and my church. I'm so glad you're doing this. But for some reason, that hasn't translated over into many individuals or churches deciding to try and underwrite this ministry. So I've been going back and forth. I met with a guy earlier this week that I thought would have maybe some alternative ideas for funding, and he didn't. So I'm inclined just to go ahead and monetize all my videos again on YouTube and just take that income, so at least I can cover equipment and subscription costs for this going forward. But I'm thinking that for the next year at least, I'm wanting to stay focused on Methodist stuff, which is kind of niche. There aren't a whole lot of Methodists that are online and watching and staying updated with this kind of stuff, so that might just mean there's not going to be any enough money in this to actually hire on additional staff like TJ or someone else until we pivot and start talking about more broad cultural stuff. And so that's something that I'm looking at pivoting maybe a year out after the general conferences next year. But I'm already decided, even if this makes no money and a lot of enemies, I'm going to keep talking about Methodist stuff because I'm very invested in what the United Methodist Church does next year, and I'm very invested in what the Global Methodist Church does next year. And so I just invite you all to be in prayer with me, and then if you have any thoughts or insights as to how it is that I can make this ministry more viable, I'm all ears. So I'm going to remind you my email address is at plainspokenpod@gmail.com. All right, I'm going to check the chat real quick before we move on, and I don't think that there have been any more chats. So let's go back to my screen up here. And then just remind you of where I'm at online. This is my Facebook, and we're almost up to 1,000 followers. We're kind of stalled out. Of course, my most successful place is on YouTube, where we're up to 203 videos. Can you believe I've done that much? And 2.84 thousand subs. So I felt pretty good about this until I'm going to tell you about this guy, Redeemed Zoomer, who's been on YouTube just a little bit longer than me, and he's 100 times bigger than me. I want to remind you, I'm doing a Substack, and you can find that at jeffreyrickman.substack.com. And this is my official list of 12 Wesleyan Methodist distinctives that you should see on the screen here. And I'm going to be doing a series on why each one is absolutely essential for Methodists to reclaim. And so you can see them here and now. I might talk through them a little bit more later, but I think each one is super important and super worthy. And so we probably won't circle back today because there's so much to talk about, but it's definitely something that you're going to see more of coming up. I don't want to put out, I'm already releasing this, but I'm going to put out very well researched, thought out pieces so that it's harder to argue with me or dismiss me. I was on Twitter today, and this is, of course, where I'm at, and I have a huge following, 85 people, right? And had a lot of back and forth. I meant to look it up. Why didn't I look it up whenever I got here? Let's see. I can go to my notifications and go back. There's this guy. What is his name? Well, did I already go back too far? Is hosting this Reclaiming Methodism. Oh, it's on my personal account. That's why. So that's why I'm not going to look it up. I'm not going to be logging in and out. Jeff is with us. Paid sponsors. I wonder if a seminary would like to pay you to advertise on your channel. I've actually had that offered by 2 different seminaries, and I need to actually pursue that with them to see how much they would pay. Surely that would be... Yeah, why haven't I done that? I think these things and then I forget about them, but thanks for reminding me about that. All right, so the next thing I think to talk about is tomorrow there is an annual conference, a special called conference in North Georgia. I've had somebody email me about this, and there's also going to be special called conferences in Missouri and Iowa, and those might be tents as well. I really don't know, but I know for sure that the one in North Georgia is going to be tense. I know that because several people have written me about it. It's a very anxious situation because what all churches in hostile areas deal with is it smarter to broadcast our business for everybody to see so as to put pressure on the conference to behave morally rightly because they know that they're going to be scrutinized in the court of public opinion? Or will that have a bad impact, and people who in the conference structure who otherwise would be sympathetic with us if we cast a spotlight on them are then going to dig their heels in and be more unsympathetic towards us and even bear us ill will? And so generally speaking, the conservatives that have stayed in the United Methodist Church are conflict averse. The ones that were willing to do conflict already did it, and then they just got kicked out or left. The ones that are left are ones that have always chosen prudence over boldness. And by always, I mean mostly. So the leadership there are some people who have contacted me and said, please talk about this. There are other people who have contacted me saying, hey, we know you know some about this. Don't talk about it. It's being handled behind closed doors. It might go our way. Please, please, please don't talk about it. And so for me on my end, it's the same thing that was going on in Western North Carolina a couple weeks ago. I'm pretty sure that the institution, if you let them operate in darkness, is always going to take advantage of it and use it to their ability, to their benefit. That's just what I've seen happen time and time again. So it really is not pleasant at all for me to have these conservatives that I care about. I really care about those that are left behind and who are saying, please don't talk about us. And so, would I rather be guilty for talking too much or not talking enough? And kind of the decision that I made a while back was I'd rather talk too much than not enough. I would rather overhelp than underhelp. The guilt that I have from not talking is so much worse than the guilt that I have from talking. And so that's kind of where my head is at as I'm talking today. And I do it knowing that I could have a negative impact, but really praying that I don't, because I'll remind you on the front end, I don't think that withholding churches that want to disaffiliate actually helps anyone. I think it's a lose-lose consequence for not just the church that's held back, but also for the conference that holds them back. I think it's bad for them. I think it causes a lot of harm. John Lomperis has chronicled that in his work on juicy ecumenism. I cite that in my piece on the specter of withholding congregations. I think that's the name of the video that I did. It's the one with the football players on the field. So all that to say, whenever I talk about this stuff publicly, yes, I have an ideological identity, theological identity, which leans traditionalist right, and I know that the temptation that comes with that is to demonize those that are not seeing things the same as me, and I always want to stay away from that because that's just not helpful. I do think that there are institutional forces at play that make otherwise rational and moral people behave in irrational and immoral ways, and I just think there's a lot of phoniness and concern about money and power. I think that's all there. And, I also should acknowledge there are people on the conservative side that behave badly and that I wouldn't excuse that. But even so, I think the immediate concern is in North Georgia, there is a lot of pressure not to let churches disaffiliate. This is the one annual conference I'm aware of that just straight up would not abide by the disaffiliation process officially. I think there are others that unofficially just made it really difficult, almost impossible to get through. But in North Georgia, whenever Bishop Sue Hopper Johnson was at the top, before the new bishop, I'm forgetting her name, but I'll remember it in a minute, before she stepped in, she just said, no, we're not going to do it. There's too much disinformation. This is indefinitely suspended. You cannot disaffiliate. So I covered that. If you just search through my channel, type in North Georgia, you'll see it's one of the first videos that I did that got very big. So now they have a new bishop. I'm about to show you a video of her. Somebody sent this to me at UMC Truth. I haven't followed this place. I watched it like 30 seconds before I turned on the cameras today. So here's it's just a YouTube short.
In my role as your bishop, I am calling a special session of our annual conference on Saturday, November 18, 2023. At this special session, we will vote on local church disaffiliations as outlined in the May 19 ruling of Cobb County Superior Court Judge Schuster. Clergy membership of the annual conference is defined in paragraph 32 of our Book of Discipline.
You can't see the picture real well. Or at least I couldn't.
Of our Book of Discipline.
So they said more to come. I didn't check to see if more actually came. Let's see what happens if I try and go to... Nope, no more did come. UMC Truth had only one truth, and that was that the bishop... she cited the Book of Discipline and had a hymnal in her hand, which is just kind of icky. It's like, yeah... Well, Robin Deese is her name, I think. I'm pretty sure. It's definitely Deese is the last name. You'll see the website I have now is from the North Georgia Conference of the UMC, and it has a report on each of the churches, very much like Western North Carolina had, and their status, if they're continuing United Methodist or if they held a church conference on disaffiliation, how many ballots there were, what percentage disaffiliation passed by. It's very helpful I think. All right, so I did get a private correspondence from somebody who's very concerned about what's going to happen. So he reminded me, I don't remember if it's he or she. I'm going to pretend I know this is a man that wrote me. Robin Deese stepped in at just the beginning of this year, and they only resumed the disaffiliation process because they were forced to by the Georgia State Court. They said, this is put in writing. It's optional. You have to do it. So they've reluctantly done it. And I've heard, whisperings. A couple people have sent me things just saying, hey, they're making it way too hard to get through the process. But, they have let a lot of churches go through the process. And I'm not remembering the total number at this point. I know that the number of churches up for disaffiliation is always less than the total churches that actually want to go, either because it's prohibitively expensive or because the process out is just too intimidating and they're so demoralized they can't do it. So actually, let's search Ritter's site and see if there is a number here. North Georgia. Oh, that's about a Lighthouse congregation. All right, 59 anticipated disaffiliation. Well, wait, North Georgia. Oh, wait, come on. Iowa, upcoming special sessions. North Georgia, 267. There's the number. It was blue. I just couldn't see it. 267 churches so far have voted to disaffiliate. How many total churches are in that annual conference? Are you going to open? You open? Well, I know. I want to open it right now. That's not what I want. How about if I double-click that? There we go. Okay. So we're looking at North Georgia. Okay, they have 776 churches as of the close of 2021. So that's like a third of their churches, almost, I think, that are trying to get out, according to Ritter's count, which is quite a deal. Okay, so you see why it's a big deal. They're looking at losing. Well, and if my understanding is that oh man, I didn't even show you my screen here. All right, so I should show you the work that I did. North Georgia. Sorry, guys. All right, here it was. 267 have voted so far to disaffiliate in North Georgia. So we're looking at 57 in Iowa, 20 in Missouri, 63 in Michigan, another 71 in Florida. Wow. Man, Florida. Illinois, Great Rivers, 51, really. North Texas, it doesn't even have a number there. And Rio, Texas, December 2nd. Okay, so there's some coming up, and of course I still haven't done my reporting on Rio. So I'm sorry. Let me make sure that the stream is going okay. I'm paranoid about this now, and then I'm going to read to you some of this analysis from North Georgia. All right. We got Paul from Texas. Sorry I'm late. It's a crazy day. Hope everyone... Oh, I'm sorry you're having a bad day, brother. Duncan says, I would generally rather be damned if I do than damned if I don't. Yeah, I'm the same, dude. I'm exactly the same. Duncan is from North Georgia, and so I hope you're happy with what I say today. And then Paul says, you got to keep talking. You have perspective we really need. I'm still fairly new Christian, and I'm grateful for the GMC. And hey, Tyson from Kansas, good to see you, brother. All right, so I'm going to hop back into this email on North Georgia just so you guys know how to pray for them as they get together tomorrow. I'm going to try and not give away any details of who this is. Okay, so tomorrow, November 18th, they're going to have their meeting at the Classic Center in Athens, Georgia. They will be voting and have created a provision to allow the churches to be voted on individually if a church is objected to. If that happens, it would be voted on separately. And I looked at the language as to how they plan on voting, and it was weird. It said that a church can be taken from the list and voted on individually with a motion and a second, but there would be no vote after that. So it sounded to me pretty clearly like only 2 people are required to remove any given church from the slate that are going to be voted on. 200 some. Oh my gosh. So they have a video they put out on Vimeo. I'll try and remember to put that in the show notes here. So they're planning to remove many churches from the conference vote and vote on them individually. So this would be really, there are a few conferences that have done that. Oklahoma did that some, and it got really contentious, and it could have been a lot worse. It happened in Arkansas with Jonesboro and Searcy, and I want to say Cabot. That all but killed two of the three churches. It gets really nasty and bad. There was another one from, I want to say Virginia, but I forget. Lon Paris wrote on it. And it's a bad move, man. As I said whenever I began this segment, it's bad for the conference and it's terrible for the churches. But that's what it sounds like they're planning on in North Georgia. They didn't ever want to do this. They fought it tooth and nail. They only did it when they were compelled to legally, and now it looks like they're going to withhold many. This next part, he says, is not public record, but it's been given to him by very reputable sources. He's heard from two different people in the know that churches who got close to the 66.7% mark in the disaffiliation vote, remember, each local church, they don't disaffiliate. When they take the vote, it's not a simple majority. It's a two-thirds supermajority that has to, two-thirds plus one, has to clear in order for them to go through the whole process and come before conference for ratification. So they're going to be objected to and tried to keep in the conference due to three charges: either misinformation. So keep in mind they were forced by a court to restart the process that they stopped due to misinformation. They haven't gotten to a different place with that misinformation and said, oh, it's not a concern anymore. No, they still are going to say a lot of these votes are illegitimate because of misinformation, which for a year I've been saying, what is the substance of this misinformation? Who's saying it? What can you point to? And there's been scant evidence, if anything, ever submitted to the public record that could hold up. What seems to be the case pretty clearly to people like me is that the true information just doesn't make the UMC leadership look good, and it leads to bad feelings and people wanting to get away from that. And so they're saying misinformation. Like if my wife looks at me and tells me I'm getting fat and she's having a hard time enjoying being with me anymore, I don't get to say that's misinformation. Man, that was a terrible metaphor. I'm sorry, you guys. But the point stands, like just because something hurts doesn't mean it isn't true. Just because I don't identify, my wife doesn't get to tell me I'm getting ugly, and then I say, well, I identify as very handsome, so you should desire me very much. That's just not how relationships work, so you don't get to just gaslight people who see things about you that aren't good. You have to address the substance of that, and when you can't do that, which is where we're at right now, there is no truth that the UMC can share that makes traditionalists or conservatives feel better about it. All they can do is gaslight. And so, yeah, that makes things worse. That exacerbates things. So the misinformation thing is really going to be a problem. Second charge would be that their loss would create a Methodist desert, a United Methodist desert. So, this is a concern for conferences where a lot have seriously talked about, hey, we're not going to have a United Methodist presence anywhere with this demographic. Usually they don't care if that's a rural place, but they care if it's a suburban or urban place, because then there are lots of people with lots of money that you would otherwise then miss out on, hypothetically, if the UMC knew how to do evangelism and make disciples, which it doesn't. Point three, there will be some that argue potential financial loss to the conference, since many of these are larger churches. So which churches are they thinking of? Definitely four big ones: Griffin First, McEachern Memorial, Snellville, and St. James. Those are the four that they were absolutely certain about. They listed a lot of other smaller churches: LaGrange, Madison, New Hope, Stinchcombe. So this could all just be paranoia. It could be that just a few people were talking about this and this got shut down at the last minute. It could be hypothetically possible that the conference leadership comes to annual conference saying, no, we've decided this is just not a road we want to go down. We're not going to fight it. We're just going to let them go. And in that case, it'd be wonderful. I love eating my words when I'm wrong about stuff like this. So I'm not one of these that prognosticates and says, you can take it to the bank. I'm one of these that says, here's a worst case scenario to be prepared for, and have your, I think Christians have to prepare for the worst and hope for the best. And I think you can do both. I think we have to do both. But when things go really can't be